Look, I know how this sounds. I know how it should sound. Like some dumbass horror story, some urban legend crap. But I swear on my life, everything I'm about to tell you actually happened. And if you think I'm making it up, fine. Just don't pick up the phone when a blocked number calls. It started with some stupid fun. Me and my best friend, Danny, were at my place on a Friday night, bored out of our minds. We had a couple of beers, smoked a little, just the usual. At some point, Danny got the genius idea to do prank calls. I hadn't done that shit since middle school, but after a few drinks, everything sounds funny. We started with the usual, ordering 100 pizzas to some random dude's house, calling a Walmart and asking for condoms in weird sizes, you know, dumb shit. But after a while, we got tired of it. Most people just hung up, or they were too chill. We wanted something creepier. Danny, being Danny, pulled out his laptop and went digging through the sketchiest parts of the internet. He was into all that hacker shit. Not that he was any good, but he knew how to find stuff normal people shouldn't. That's when he found it, a text file on some dark web forum. It was just called Numbers You Should Never Call. Now, obviously, we had to call them. The list was long, maybe 50 numbers, all with weird-ass area codes I'd never seen. We scrolled through, picking one at random. Danny punched it in and put it on speaker. It rang, once, twice, 3 times. Then someone picked up. No hello, no noise at all, just breathing. Slow, deep, almost like they were listening to us instead of waiting for us to talk. Danny grinned at me and went into full prank mode. "Hi, sir. We're calling about your car's extended warranty." The breathing stopped. Then, in the creepiest fucking voice I've ever heard, the guy whispered, "I see you." That was it. Just those 3 words. I laughed it off, thinking it was just some dude messing with us. But Danny, for the first time that night, actually looked freaked out. His face went pale, and he ended the call without saying anything else. "Dude, what?" I asked. He didn't answer. He was just staring at his screen. I leaned over and felt my stomach drop. Our webcam was on. Neither of us had turned it on. Danny slammed the laptop shut. No, fuck that. We sat there for a second, just processing, then did the only thing that made sense. Laughed it off. Like, yeah, that was creepy. But what was the worst that could happen?
I wish we had stopped there. I wish we had just gone to bed, played some Xbox, literally anything else. But we called another number. This time, a woman answered. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "You shouldn't have called." Danny, trying to be funny, said, "Or what? You going to kill us?" Silence. Then she said something in Spanish. I only caught one word, mataré, I'll kill. Danny hung up and rubbed his arms like he was cold. "Okay, dude, I'm done." I was still laughing. Come on, they're just trying to scare us. Then my phone buzzed. I looked down, unknown number, one new message. It was a photo of me and Danny, sitting right there in my bedroom. The angle was from outside my fucking window. I jumped up and ran to the window, yanking the blinds open. Nothing. Just my empty backyard, the streetlight flickering in the distance. I felt sick. Danny's phone buzzed next. He picked it up with shaking hands. "Dude," he whispered, "they sent me a video." He pressed play. It was grainy, security cam footage, like something from a gas station. A man was standing at a counter, buying cigarettes. Then, out of fucking nowhere, another guy ran up behind him and Danny threw his phone across the room. I didn't need to see the rest. The guy got stabbed, right there, in the middle of the store. No warning, no build-up. 1 second he was buying smokes, the next he was choking on his own blood. "Okay, what the fuck?" I muttered. Danny didn't say anything. He was already picking up his phone, his fingers shaking as he dialed 911. The call connected, and then the same voice from the first call. "I see you!" Danny screamed and threw his phone again, shattering the screen this time. I grabbed my keys. We're getting the fuck out of here. We ran to my car and peeled out of the driveway. I didn't know where we were going, just away. My heart was hammering, my mind racing. I kept glancing at the mirrors, expecting to see headlights tailing us, but the roads were empty. After 20 minutes of aimless driving, we stopped at a 7-Eleven. It was bright, busy, safe. We sat in the car, trying to catch our breath. "Dude," Danny said, his voice hoarse, "we fucked up." "We seriously fucked up." I nodded, still gripping the wheel. "We need to go to the police." Danny hesitated. "And say what?" "We prank called some numbers and now they're sending us murder videos?" I didn't have an answer. Then my car's radio crackled to life. A low, distorted voice slithered through the speakers. "We see you." I slammed the gas. We didn't go home that night. We got a motel on the other side of town, used fake names, paid in cash. Neither of us slept. The next morning, we saw the news. Man found dead in 7-Eleven parking lot. Danny screamed. The photo of the victim, the blood-stained pavement, the police tape. It was the same fucking guy from the video. We stared at the TV, our mouths dry, our stomachs twisted in knots. The guy was dead. The same guy we saw in that video. He was fucking dead, and it happened last night, the same night we got the video. Danny was shaking. He grabbed his phone, well, what was left of it, and tried turning it on, but the screen was fucked. "Dude," he croaked, "we need to go to the cops."
I didn't argue this time. We grabbed our shit and bolted out of the motel. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see some blacked-out van waiting for us, but the parking lot was empty. I jumped in the driver's seat, and we tore out of there, heading straight for the nearest police station. I was driving too fast, running red lights. I didn't give a fuck. But when we got there, I knew it wasn't going to help. The station was small, probably only a handful of officers working there. The guy at the front desk looked half asleep, scrolling through his phone. He barely even looked at us when we ran up to him, out of breath. Danny slammed his hands on the counter. "Someone's trying to kill us." That got his attention. The cop sighed, put his phone down and gave us the usual cop bullshit. "Okay, slow down, what's going on?" We tried explaining, the calls, the messages, the video, the guy dying for real. I could tell the cop didn't believe us. "You're saying you prank called some numbers and now you're being harassed?" He sounded bored already. Danny leaned in. "Dude, listen to me. The guy from the video we got last night is dead. He was fucking murdered. That's not a prank." The cop sighed and rubbed his temples. "Do you have proof?" I pulled out my phone and opened my texts. The message was still there, clear as day. "Here, this is the photo they sent me." He took my phone, squinted at the screen. Then his expression changed. His face went pale, his lips pressing into a thin line. "Where did you get this?" "I told you. They sent it to me." His eyes flicked up to mine, and for the first time I saw something close to fear. He turned to Danny. "And you said you got a video?" Danny swallowed. "Yeah, but my phone's broken." The cop hesitated, then stood up. "Stay here." He disappeared through a door in the back. We waited. Minutes passed. I kept checking the entrance, half expecting some masked guy with a machete to come storming in. Then another cop came out. Not the guy we talked to. This one was older, built like a linebacker, with sharp, suspicious eyes. His badge read, Detective Yates. "Come with me," he said. We followed him into a small room, plain white walls, a cheap metal table, security cameras in the corners, an interrogation room. The door shut behind us. Yates sat down across from us, folding his hands. "Tell me everything." So we did. The numbers, the voices, the webcam, the video. When we finished, he was quiet for a long time, just staring at us like he was trying to decide if we were fucking with him. Then he leaned forward, his voice low. "You have no idea what you've done." A chill ran down my spine. He sighed, rubbing his face. "Look, there are groups of people out there. People who deal in some real dark shit. Murder for hire shit. Snuff films. Organ trafficking. You name it." My stomach flipped. "This list you found, it wasn't just some internet creepypasta. It was a black market directory." Danny stiffened. "A directory for what?" Yates's expression darkened. "People who kill for money." Silence. I felt like I was going to be sick. "You're telling me we called hitmen?" Yates nodded. "And you did more than that. You fucking taunted them." Danny was breathing hard, his hands gripping the edges of his seat. "But how did they find us so fast? How did they see us?" Yates hesitated. Then he pulled something out of his pocket and slid it across the table. A tiny black chip. "That," he said, "was under your car." My blood ran cold. "It's a GPS tracker, military grade. These people, they don't fuck around." I grabbed my head, trying to process everything. "So what do we do? Witness protection? FBI? What?" Yates shook his head. "You don't get it. These guys, they are the ones people go to when they want to disappear." Danny and I looked at each other. Yates continued. "If you're lucky, they'll leave you alone. Maybe they think scaring you was enough. Maybe they'll get bored." He looked at us grimly. "If you're unlucky, you'll be dead before the week is over." Danny slammed his fists on the table. "So what the fuck are we supposed to do?" Yates exhaled sharply, looking around like he wasn't supposed to be telling us this. Then he leaned in, voice lower. "There's one guy," he muttered. "He's an ex-contractor. Used to be in deep with them, but he got out. He knows how they work." "Where is he?" I asked. Yates hesitated. "Mexico." Danny let out a short, bitter laugh. "Oh, great. We'll just take a nice little vacation while assassins hunt us down." "I know how it sounds," Yates said, "but if you want to live, you need to disappear. Fake names, cash only, get off the grid."
I swallowed hard. My mind was spinning. How do we find him? Yates scribbled something on a napkin and slid it across the table. "This is his last known address, but I'm warning you, he doesn't trust people, and if you lead them to him, he'll kill you himself." I took the napkin. My hands were shaking. Danny ran a hand through his hair, breathing fast. "Dude, are we seriously doing this?" I looked at him. Then I looked at the GPS tracker on the table. We didn't have a choice. I wish I could say we had time to think, that we had time to process, but we didn't. Because as soon as we stepped out of that police station, I knew something was wrong. For starters, Yates didn't walk us out. He just told us to leave through the side exit and keep our heads down. That alone set off alarm bells. But when we got outside, the air felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. Danny must have felt it too, because he muttered, "We shouldn't have come here." I scanned the parking lot. My car was still there, but something felt off. It was parked near a silver Toyota Camry that definitely wasn't there when we arrived. The windows were tinted black, illegal dark. Couldn't see a damn thing inside. Danny noticed it too. "Dude," he whispered, "someone's in there." I didn't answer. My heart was hammering so loud I could feel it in my skull. We moved fast, didn't run, didn't make it obvious, just walked like two normal guys going back to their car, like we didn't just get told we had fucking bounties on our heads. I slid into the driver's seat. Danny got in next to me, hands shaking. I turned the key. The Camry's engine roared to life. "Fuck!" I slammed the gas. The tires screeched, the engine growled, and we shot out of the parking lot like a bat out of hell. I swerved onto the main road, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The Camry followed. "Dude, go!" Danny shouted. "I'm fucking going!"
I cut through traffic, barely missing a minivan. Horns blared, a car swerved behind us, but the Camry, it stayed locked on us, moving smooth, calm, like whoever was driving wasn't even worried about the chase. I took a sharp left onto a side street, hoping to lose them, but they turned just as fast. "They're still fucking on us!" Danny yelled, twisting in his seat to look. I didn't answer. My brain was running on pure survival mode. We had to lose them.
Up ahead, an intersection. The light turned yellow. I floored it. The engine screamed as we shot through the intersection. Just as the light turned red, a truck honked so loud it rattled my bones. I swerved to avoid getting T-boned, barely making it. The Camry stopped. They didn't run the red. Danny was panting. Holy fuck! Holy fuck! I turned onto a quieter street, still speeding, but the Camry never came. I took the first chance I got and pulled into a McDonald's parking lot, heart slamming against my ribs. We sat there for a second, just breathing. Danny was gripping his knees. Dude! What the fuck? What the fuck? I couldn't even speak. My hands were still locked on the wheel. A knock on the window made us both jump. I whipped around, ready to throw a punch, but it was just some old dude in a McDonald's uniform holding a broom. He looked annoyed as shit. "You can't park here," he said. I nodded, swallowed, and pulled out of the lot. We drove in silence for a while. We didn't know where the fuck to go, couldn't go home, couldn't go back to the motel, and we damn sure weren't going back to the cops. Finally, Danny broke the silence. "We're really doing this, huh?" I knew what he meant. Mexico. I exhaled slowly. "Yeah." We found an ATM, pulled out as much cash as it would let us, then ditched my car in a Walmart parking lot. If they had a tracker on it, I wasn't about to lead them straight to the fucking border. We bought burner phones at a 7-Eleven and used them to book 2 one-way bus tickets to Laredo. It was the closest border crossing we could get to without needing to board a plane. I paid in cash. Danny kept looking over his shoulder the whole time. "Dude," I muttered, "you're being obvious." "I don't give a fuck," he snapped. "I'm scared." I didn't blame him. I was too. The bus ride was long. Hours of nothing but shitty gas stations and half-empty diners. We barely spoke. Every time someone new got on, my stomach twisted. Every time a car followed us for too long, my heart started racing. Somewhere around hour 5, Danny muttered, "Do you think Yates set us up?" I looked at him. He was staring at his lap, rubbing his hands together like he always did when he was nervous. I hadn't thought about it before, but fuck, what if he was right? What if the only reason we were still breathing was because they wanted us to run?
What if this was all just a game to them? I didn't answer. I just looked out the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The bus rolled into Laredo just after midnight. The streets were quiet, mostly lit by flickering neon signs from rundown motels and 24-hour gas stations. It smelled like burning oil and stale beer. The kind of place where no one asks questions, which, under normal circumstances, would have been comforting. Not this time. We stepped off the bus, our backpacks strapped tight to our shoulders. Everything we owned was in there. Cash, burner phones, fake IDs we bought off some shady website Danny found a few months back. They were shit quality, but we weren't trying to get into a club. We were trying to disappear. Danny looked around, rubbing the back of his neck. "Now what?" I pulled out the napkin Yates gave me. The address was smudged, but I could still make it out. Some place on the outskirts of Nuevo Laredo. I punched it into Google Maps. "About 15 miles from here." I swallowed. "We need a ride," Danny scoffed. "Oh yeah? You want to call an Uber while professional killers are hunting us?" He had a point. I looked around, scanning the street. There was a gas station a block away with a couple of beat-up taxis parked outside, a few sketchy-looking guys hanging around, smoking, watching. I nodded toward them. "We go there." Danny hesitated. Dude, we're gonna get fucking robbed. Then we'll get robbed, I said. But we don't have a choice. We walked. Fast, but not too fast. Act normal. Just two guys traveling. No reason for anyone to give a fuck about us. The driver we found was an old guy, maybe in his 60s, wearing a sweat-stained polo. His cab smelled like cigarettes and cheap cologne. "Donde?" he asked, barely looking at us. I showed him the address. His expression changed. Not fear exactly, but something close. "No." My stomach clenched. "What do you mean, no?" He shook his head, staring out the windshield. "Ese lugar es peligroso." Danny groaned. "Dude, what's he saying?" I wasn't fluent, but I knew enough. That place is dangerous. I pulled out a $100 bill and slipped it over the seat. "Por favor." The driver stared at it, then at us. His fingers twitched. He took the money. The ride was silent. The city lights faded behind us, replaced by empty roads and dark fields. Every mile felt heavier, more final, like we weren't coming back. Danny tapped my knee. "Dude," he whispered, "we shouldn't be doing this." "We don't have a choice." He exhaled sharply, running a hand down his face. "Yeah, well, this feels like a bad fucking choice." He wasn't wrong. The taxis slowed in front of a crumbling house at the end of a dirt road. There were no streetlights, no other buildings nearby, just dry land and black sky stretching in every direction. The driver didn't even stop completely. He looked at us through the rearview mirror, eyes dark. "Vayan." "Get out." We didn't argue. As soon as we shut the doors, he peeled off, kicking up dust and gravel. We were alone. The house looked abandoned, windows boarded up, paint peeling. The front door was slightly open, swaying just a little in the wind. Danny swallowed. "Fuck this." I stepped forward. "Dude," he grabbed my arm, "you don't just walk into a place like this." I looked at him. "Then what do we do? Knock?" Before he could answer, the front door creaked open wider, and someone stepped out. I don't know what I expected. Some grizzled old man, maybe. Scarred face, military posture. But this guy, he looked normal, mid-40s, average height, wearing jeans and a plain black t-shirt. His hair was short, starting to grey, and his face was lined, like he never slept much. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, sizing us up. Then in perfect English he said, "You fucking idiots." Danny and I exchanged a look. "Yates sent us," I said. "I know." The guy shook his head. "That's why you're still breathing." He turned and walked inside. We followed. The inside of the house was worse than the outside. Bare concrete floors, exposed wiring, a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. It smelled like dust and cigarettes. A half-empty bottle of tequila sat on a wooden table next to an old, beaten-up laptop. The guy sat down and gestured for us to do the same. "So," he said, lighting a cigarette, "you two pissed off the wrong people." Danny let out a hollow laugh. "No fucking shit." The guy took a long drag. "You think you're the first dumbasses to call those numbers?" I stayed quiet. "They let people find that list, you know. Not by accident. It's a trap." He exhaled smoke. "Most people who call, they don't even last the night." Danny swallowed. "So why are we still alive?" The guy smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "That's what I'm trying to figure out." The silence stretched. Then he leaned forward. "Listen to me very carefully," he said. "You don't run from these people. You disappear. No phones, no credit cards, no internet. If they really want you dead, they'll find you no matter what. But if you're lucky," he crushed the cigarette into an ashtray, "maybe they'll just forget about you." Danny wiped his face. "Yeah? And if they don't?" The guy's expression darkened. "Then you're already dead." We sat there in silence. Just me, Danny, and this guy, our supposed lifeline, who had basically just told us we were fucked. Danny ran a hand through his hair, his knee bouncing. "Okay, so what do we do?" The guy leaned back in his chair, studying us. Then he reached under the table and pulled out a small, unmarked bottle. He unscrewed the cap, took a slow sip, then slid it toward us. "First," he said, "you drink." Danny gave me a look like, "Are you fucking serious?" But I grabbed the bottle anyway. If this guy wanted us dead, he wouldn't have invited us inside. I took a sip. It burned like fire, like moonshine mixed with gasoline. I coughed and slid it to Danny, who just shook his head. The guy smirked. "Smart." Then his face went dead serious. "You listen to me, and you do not ask stupid questions, got it?" We both nodded. "Good, because the only reason you two are still breathing is because they're watching." A cold weight settled in my chest. Danny's voice was hoarse. "Watching how?" The guy tapped his temple. "Your phones, your cards, cameras on every street corner. Every time you take money out of an ATM, every time you log into fucking Instagram, they know exactly where you are." I clenched my jaw. We had ditched our phones. We'd been using cash. But he kept talking like it didn't matter. "They don't just find people," he continued. "They make people disappear. No bodies, no trails, just gone." Danny shifted in his seat. "And you got out?" The guy's jaw tightened. For the first time since we met him, he looked uncomfortable. Then he pulled up his shirt. His torso was covered in scars. Not just one or two, dozens. Knife wounds, burns, something that looked like a bullet hole near his ribs. Danny went pale. The guy let his shirt fall. "Nobody gets out clean." My throat was dry. "So how do we disappear?" He exhaled, pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, and slid it across the table. "These are names, people who can help. You get to one of them, you do exactly what they say. No questions, no hesitation. You fuck up once." He snapped his fingers. "That's it, you're dead." I unfolded the paper. There were 3 names, 3 locations. 1 in Guatemala, 1 in Colombia, 1 in Serbia. Danny snatched it from me. "Dude, what the fuck?" The guy cut him off. "Pick one, right now." Danny looked at me. His hands were shaking. His breathing was fast, panicked. I swallowed. "Guatemala." The guy nodded. "Good choice." He stood up, grabbed a duffel bag from the corner, and tossed it onto the table. "Everything you need is in there. IDs, cash, burner phones. You leave tonight." Danny grabbed my arm, whispering, "Dude, I don't fucking trust this." I turned to the guy. "Why are you helping us?" He smirked, but there was no humor in it. "Because if I don't, they'll come for me too." That shut Danny up. We didn't have a choice. We left within the hour, took a different cab, ditched it halfway, then hopped on a truck heading south. The guy told us no buses, no flights, too many cameras, too many checkpoints. For the next 3 days we lived like ghosts, moved at night, slept in cheap motels or the back of trucks, never stayed in one place too long. Every time I saw a cop, my stomach flipped. Danny barely spoke. When he did, it was short, panicked. "Dude, we're actually fucking doing this. Do you think they're still following us?" "I don't think I can do this, man." The only thing keeping me together was adrenaline. That, and the thought that maybe, if we made it to Guatemala, we'd actually be safe. I should have known better. The night we crossed the border, it all went to shit. We had just gotten into Mexico City. The place was huge, packed with people even after midnight. Neon lights, music blasting from clubs, street vendors selling tacos. It almost felt normal. But then I noticed something. A black SUV parked across the street. No plates, dark windows. Danny saw it too. "Dude!" The engine started. We fucking ran, pushed through crowds, down side streets, turned corners at random, but they were right behind us. Footsteps, fast, heavy, then gunshots. I heard glass shatter. People screamed. We cut through an alley, turned into a parking garage, empty, silent, except for the sound of our footsteps echoing off the concrete. Danny gasped for breath. Fuck! Fuck! I pressed myself against a pillar, listening. My heart was beating so loud I could barely think. Silence. Then, click. Danny's body jolted. For a second I didn't understand. He just stood there, eyes wide. Then he fell. Blood poured from his stomach, pooling on the concrete. His hands clutched at it, but there was too much. I caught him before he hit the ground. "Danny, no, no, no!" he gasped. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I looked up. A man stood there, black gloves, silencer on the pistol, face completely calm. I froze. He took a step forward, raised the gun, tires screeched. A second later, another gunshot rang out, but it wasn't aimed at me. The man's head snapped back, blood spraying onto the wall behind him. A car skidded to a stop. The back door flew open. "Get in!" I barely had time to react. I grabbed Danny, he was still breathing barely, and dragged him into the car. Hands pulled him from me, pressed against his wound, tried to stop the bleeding. The driver hit the gas, tires screeching as we tore out of the garage. I turned to see who had saved us. It was the guy from the house. He was gripping the wheel, face grim, driving like a maniac. He glanced at me through the rear view. "Told you," he muttered. "You fucked up."